With us in studio is Sam Creamer of the Creamer Law Firm. We're going to be talking about something I think is going to be very important for you to listen to, and it's entitled The 5 Most Important Things You Can Do to Avoid Legal Troubles. All right, sir, let's get into this. So are there really 5 things that...
There may be 5, there may be 7, there may be 132. But I've been practicing law for about 35 years now, and I'm also a CPA. And I've had clients that are very large and very small. And I've had clients that have had no legal troubles. I've had clients that have made a mess for themselves. So what I'd like to talk about today are 5 things that people can do that could make the problems less, or that could avoid the problems altogether.
Mitigating the exposure, perhaps.
Mitigating the exposure.
All right. What do we got?
Well, I'm not going to do these in any particular order,
Okay.
but I would argue that perhaps the first thing to consider is communication is key.
Yeah.
Now, that communication should have certain elements to it. If you've got some kind of time frames that you're working for, you have to deliver something on a certain date, or that a certain project's going to be accomplished by a certain date. Time frames need to be established. Second, you need to establish what's going to be done when. Are you going to have the road finished on November 30th? Are you going to have the project delivered and the report signed by January 1st? So those types of time frames are very important. And from time to time, things change.
Sure.
And when things change, what we have found is that people want to know what the change is and why it's been occasioned.
So don't hold that back.
Don't hold that back. As soon as you recognize that there's an issue relative to a time frame, address it. Call the other party and say, here is what's happened, here's what's going on. It is our finding that you will have a lot less of legal exposure if you've been forthcoming with what needs to be done when.
Got it.
But most important on communication is, to the extent possible, get it in writing.
How many times have you told us that, Sam?
I will tell it over and over and over again because it is so critically important. Now, the writing could be a full-blown contract if it's some type of particular difficult thing, something that's of great importance. The writing could be a purchase order. The writing could be as simple as a series of confirming emails. But the more that you have in writing, the more the parties' expectations are going to be memorialized. As the parties' expectations are memorialized, that avoids a significant amount of legal problems.
All right, there you go. Communication, as in almost everything that has anything to do with business, is important. All right.
Another thing that we would say is very important is to pick your battles. When something goes wrong in a project, or something goes wrong during the course of an engagement, our recommendation is own it. Say, our staff couldn't produce, say that the shipper didn't ship, say you didn't accomplish what was necessary, own it. It is our finding that the other party recognizes that things happen.
And shouldn't you mean it at the same time?
You should mean it, and you should not really have to say it. I'm not urging people
Right.
to not meet deadlines or expectations.
Right. But I mean, if there's an error in something, own it, and then be sincere, I think, in that apology.
It is far easier to say the words, "I'm sorry," than to hear the words, "You have just been served."
Ouch. Yeah. Yeah.
Also, Michael, when something happens, it happens. And something that sometimes occurs is people try to cover that up. They try to gloss it over, they try to say something. The cover-up is almost always worse than the problem. And if there's a problem, admit it, but covering it up can almost invariably, it leads to not only legal problems, it leads to trust problems. And ultimately, a business relationship is based on trust at some level. Get it in writing, but trust is always a element of every business transaction.
We're with Sam Creamer, ladies and gentlemen. The 5 most important things you can do to avoid legal problems.